Welcome to another episode of Boom and Bust. I'm your host, Tony Clement, here at the News Forum where all voices matter. Canada and Finland not only play hockey against one another, they trade. This is valued at $1.6 billion in 2020, and we're pleased to have Finland's ambassador to Canada, His Excellency Roy Eriksson, with us today. Welcome to our program, sir.
Thank you, Tony. It's a pleasure being here.
So I guess, first of all, how would you characterize relations between Finland and Canada? What do they have in common?
I would say that we are very like-minded countries. We share the same values like democracy, a rules-based international order, human rights, gender equality, just to mention a few things. And then, of course, now the top of the item is climate change. Being both very northerly countries, we take the climate change issues very seriously.
Oh, I should probably ask before we move on then, how has Finland been impacted by climate change?
Well, I can give you a very concrete example. When I was growing up, we were growing wheat only on the southern coast of Finland. Now, 60 years later, we are growing wheat almost 300 kilometers inland. We're the most northerly country growing wheat. So we have had some benefits from the climate change, but of course we have also some side effects as well. We have now new pests that we didn't have before.
Indeed, indeed. What are the major goods and services that are traded between our two countries?
Well, from Finland, we export machinery and equipment, transporting equipment, funnily enough, also refined oil products and minerals. And we import from Canada mainly minerals and metals.
And has that trade been going up?
It has, actually. I would say that thanks to the free trade agreement between EU and Canada, we have seen a growth in our trade. In the whole EU, it's about 30%, and in the bilateral, we are slightly behind that, but very good growth in trade.
Have you seen more sort of Canadian business people interested in Finland and vice versa?
Well, I would think that we have had trade relations also already quite a long time, but maybe because of the free trade agreement, there is more interest, certainly from the Finnish side, as trading with Canada is slightly easier than with US, although the market is smaller. And now with the war raging in Ukraine, our companies are looking for other markets than Russia, because we have been withdrawing from the Russian market.
I'm definitely interested in that conversation. But first, obviously, one of the big announcements recently was Nokia's announcement of a new tech cluster in Ottawa. Can you tell us more about that project?
Well, I'm very happy that Nokia decided to invest heavily here in Ottawa. I took part in the announcement celebrations and heard that $340 million are invested in Ottawa in the Kanata Tech Hub, which creates a lot of new jobs. And what was interesting was that this research and development center will actually play a very crucial role in the global importance of Nokia. And there was a tough competition. Nokia has, if I remember correctly, closely to 50 research laboratories. And Ottawa won this kind of competition for this type of technology. So I talked to the CEO, Pekka Lundberg, afterwards, and he said that they see that Ottawa is in the top 5 of importance for Nokia as a research and development center.
Well, we look forward to that proceeding for sure. We're going to continue our discussion with His Excellency Roy Eriksson, who is the Finnish ambassador to Canada. After the break, please stay with us. Welcome back to Boom and Bust. I'm your host, Tony Clement, here with His Excellency Roy Eriksson. He is the Finland ambassador to Canada. Your Excellency, how can Canada and Finland further develop their commercial and trade relations, do you think?
Well, one is working on the multilateral fora because we have seen that there is a challenge for the rules-based world order, and there Finland and Canada, we are seeing eye to eye, and we hope to prop up the organizations that are important, like the WTO, the World Trade Organization, because there's been challenges on that. And Finland being a small trading nation, we thrive on having common rules throughout the globe, and there we find Canada a very useful partner.
And so it's more on the multilateral front than the bilateral front. Is that safe to say, do you think?
Well, it trickles down. We have also, of course, connections bilaterally. I'm very happy that we have our Business Finland office in Toronto, and they have been looking on what segments of the Canadian economy would have a good, perfect fit with what the Finnish offering is, because being two northerly countries, anything that is produced or manufactured in Finland will also work in these cold climate conditions that you have here in Canada.
No, that is a commonality. There's no doubt about it. I'm going to turn. I know Russia, Ukraine is looming over a lot of our dialogue these days, but I want to just turn to the Arctic just for 1 second, because obviously that's another area where there can be some cooperation. And I just want to get your sense of the state of cooperation on economic development and security issues when it pertains to the Arctic.
Well, we are very happy to be members of the Arctic Councils, just like Canada. And actually, the Arctic Council was founded on the initiative of Canada. And since the brutal attack of Russia to Ukraine, the Arctic Council has not convened on a high level. There are some projects that are ongoing where Russians are not participating, but on a political level, we haven't been convening any groups. It is a shame. I think that the Arctic Council is one of those exceptional organizations, because there the voice of indigenous peoples are heard, because they are sitting at the table together with the political representatives of each country, and we have the common challenges, and as climate change hits, the Arctic regions 3 times or 4 times faster than anywhere else. So we need to find commonalities how to mitigate the climate change and help the livelihoods of people who live in these northern regions. So I do hope that the Arctic Council may convene sooner, but the dialogue with Russia is not at that stage yet. But it would be a shame to lose a body that has been working so well, and as you know, that security issues do not belong into the Arctic Councils. There are other fora that takes these questions into consideration.
So one final question on climate change then. It sounds like the useful dialogue on climate change in the Arctic isn't really happening now, at least at the head of government level. Is that right?
That is true, and it is shame also because on a technical level, if you look at the map, Russian Arctic regions are the majority of the Arctic region, and they have scientists on the field measuring how the ice is melting and receding and taking other measurements. And we lack that information, which is crucial for modeling what is happening in the Arctic. So in that sense, there is a need for cooperation, but we'll have to wait a while before that takes place.
Thank you for that. And we'll return with our special guest today. He is Finland's ambassador to Canada, His Excellency Roy Eriksson. We're going to take a brief commercial break. We'll be back after that break. Please stay with us. And we're back here at Boom and Bust. I'm Tony Clement here with His Excellency Roy Eriksson. He is Finland's ambassador to Canada. Your Excellency, I want to turn to the obvious elephant in the room, or I guess the Russian bear in the room, and talk about some of these security issues. Russia's invasion of Ukraine has rocked European economic and security issues, and obviously has created some near-term and some longer-term challenges. So I'd love to get your sense. Obviously, this directly affects Finland. You're one of those countries like Canada, I suppose, where we actually have a border with this aggressive nation, Russia. So love to get your sense of things as they stand now.
Thank you. You could say that the world changed on the 24th of February. Totally. The security geography in Europe may never go back to what it was before. We in Finland, of course, looked at the aggression of our neighbor with concern. We realized that Russia was not following the treaties, agreements, and rules that they had agreed on beforehand. And it was quite quickly that we understood that we cannot continue the path that we had chosen to be military non-aligned. And actually, the pressure came from the people. In 2 weeks after the attack, the polls showed that nearly 2/3 of people were of the opinion that we should join NATO as soon as possible. That opened the possibility for the government to act, and they gave a white paper to Parliament. I think it was the 13th of April. It was a white paper basing what does this mean that Russia has attacked Ukraine? How does that affect our security? So it was just facts and kind of a snapshot where we are, where at that point. And then the Parliament had the possibility to discuss the matter in different committees, and quite soon it was obvious that the train was in motion, that we would actually be putting in a petition to join NATO. Another white paper was given in May, and if you think that Russia attacked Ukraine on the 24th of February, on the 17th of May we tabled the petition to join NATO. So within 3 months we had done the decision. But it was a very democratic process. 188 MPs out of 200 voted for it, which is a bigger margin than we had for voting to join EU in '95. So it was a big shift and very swift. And we are very happy that we have been welcomed with open arms, Canada being the first one to ratify our accession. And just to underline that Finland and Sweden, we will be net security providers. Mm-hmm. We have a very strong defense force, so we will actually bring a lot of goods to the table of the alliance.
Yeah, so the kind of immediate impact of accession to NATO is obviously you're part of a security alliance now, but you have obviously some experience in winter fighting, for instance, and other aspects that will be important for NATO. Is that correct?
That is correct, and we have kept our national conscription. So we have at our disposal very quickly 280,000 men and women in arms, and with a bit further time lap up to 900,000. And our army is very strong. We have more tanks than, for example, Germany. We just made last year the decision to buy 64 F-35 fighter jets, which I believe is the same one that Canada is planning to buy. So we have been spending enough to qualify for the 2% that NATO requires from the GNP.
Interesting discussion, and certainly I'm sure there'll be further collaboration. We're going to take another brief break with our guest, His Excellency Roy Eriksson. He is Finland's ambassador to Canada. A brief break, and then we'll be back with our guest for a final segment. Please stay with us. Welcome back to Boom and Bust. I'm your host, Tony Clement, here with His Excellency Roy Eriksson. He is Finland's ambassador to Canada. Your Excellency, we were just talking about the security arrangements, obviously Finland's accession to NATO. Are there ways that you are contemplating or that you're aware of where Canada and Finland can further improve their security collaborations?
In fact, yes. There's a Center of Excellence on hybrid warfare, and Canada that is situated in Helsinki, and Canada has participated in the works of the center. And of course, cybersecurity issues are very much on the agenda, and there we are, of course, cooperating, and there's a center of excellence in Tallinn in Estonia. So being now officially acceding to NATO, it is easier to share intelligence and knowledge. So I can just see that our bilateral security relationship will go deeper than it has ever been, which is very fitting now that we are actually celebrating the 75th anniversary of bilateral diplomatic relations.
Ah, wonderful. Tell us a little bit more about this Center for, is it hybrid warfare? Is that what you mentioned?
Yes. It focuses, the idea came from it after the invasion of Crimea, because the world didn't know what was really happening. Green men, were they army people, who were there, and so forth. So that was a wake-up call for the West to see that, yes, you can have kind of warfare that is difficult to identify. Is there somebody who's an official institution behind it, or authorities, or is it private people, or so forth? So this center was set up to look at how our modern societies can be influenced mainly on social media and in the digital world.
Yes, I was going to ask about that. So you mentioned cybersecurity, but there's also, as we've seen, incursions into Western democracies by state actors. I think of Russia, China, Iran as three examples. North Korea is another. Is that something that concerns you and that we're collaborating on?
Well, it certainly concerns us in Finland, because we have seen that these kind of activities has increased with the war in Ukraine, and we take this matter seriously. And of course, we have also seen peculiar activities in our neighborhood. If you have seen in the media that there has been some drones in Norway near their oil rigs and so forth. These kinds of things have proliferated quite a lot during the campaign in Russia, in Ukraine. So the world has changed. We have to be ready for all kinds of new threats.
And do you see Canada and Finland? We've got about 30 seconds left. Canada and Finland, natural allies, the collaboration and working together will only increase.
I would certainly see that that is the way forward. Yes, yeah. Thank you.
Fantastic. I want to thank His Excellency Roy Eriksson. He is the ambassador to Canada from Finland for being our special guest today. We talked about all sorts of economic and security issues. I appreciate your candor, sir, and thanks again. We'd love to have you back sometime.
My pleasure. Thank you.
We'd like to thank our special guest, His Excellency Roy Eriksson, the ambassador to Canada from Finland. Obviously, a lot going on with Russia's invasion of Ukraine, Finland's accession to NATO, so the security issues are first and foremost. But apart from that, the economic issues. There's a lot of two-way trade, which is increasing as a result of the free trade agreement with the European Union. And of course, lots to collaborate on as two northern winterized countries. Thanks for watching today.